The line was exceptional.
I've had to train to get very, very proficient.
Gold medalist and Paralympic champion representing New Zealand.
You're always adjusting and adapting to conditions, and that's the thing that young players perhaps don't quite realise these days.
You're listening to the Hyundai High Performance Hour.
Well, joining us on the High Performance Hour tonight is a man that, well, he shouldn't need an introduction, and it's almost a little bit of a crime in this country that he does. Many of you will know the name, and many of you will know the feats of our guest on the show tonight. Jason Wynyard is a man without peer in the world of wood chopping. I guess lumberjack might be the North American term for it, but he's won more than 110 world titles in his 15 years as a professional woodcutter. And he continues to head overseas and win major tournaments and world championships. And we hope that there might be some exciting opportunities coming up here in New Zealand as well to really profile this sport and what it has to offer, as well as this man's undoubted skill. Jason, thanks for your time. It's interesting that in that intro I called you a professional woodcutter, but it's not quite that simple, is it? It's not quite super rugby stuff. You've over the years, I guess, you've still had to earn $1 or two, haven't you, away from the woodcutting?
Yeah, it's they call it a professional sport, but not the huge dollars involved as with other sports. You basically do it because you have a passion for it, and that's why I've been doing it for over 20 years. So something I love doing, and it's something in the blood. So
yeah, well, and let's talk about that. Let's start about the genetics, about the influence early on for you in this particular sport, because it is, I guess, seen as very much a New Zealand pastime activity. It's Easter show. We go and we see the wood chopping, don't we? But I mean, you've taken it further afield and won so many world titles, as I've mentioned. But what got you into it in the first place? Tell us about the upbringing for you and the family influence in this area.
Well, basically, I grew up watching my father compete, and he was a world champion axeman. And we grew up in a small town called Murupara, and the logging industry was really strong. Dad was working as a roading contractor for the logging crews throughout the forest, and it was a fantastic place to get into the sport. And I grew up watching Dad compete, and started competing myself when I was about 12, and was really good at it from an early age, and it just turned into something that I really loved doing, and wanted to train really hard at to be better at.
So was it a taught sport for you, or did you just pick it up almost by osmosis, just by watching Dad, or were you actually given lessons on how to cut?
My dad coached me in the beginning, but he was quite a hard coach. Like he just... Is
this a bit like Dad trying to teach son to drive?
Pretty
much. A few
yeah,
tense moments.
Very similar. But my dad never used to speak a lot, and he'd teach you by just demonstrating it, and you'd have to pick up on all the little intricacies, and there's a huge number of them in the sport. So as a young kid growing up, that was really difficult, but I developed my own style. I couldn't chop like my dad because we're built totally differently, and so I developed my own swing and style, and just started doing well at it and really enjoying it.
So you must have some pretty cool memories of a childhood, and were there a fair few early sort of Saturday mornings as you jump in the car and drive away to a show somewhere in a competition?
I think before I started competing, it was a bit of a drag to go to the competitions with Dad, because we'd kind of be just sitting watching, and when I finally did get involved with it, it became a lot more fun. And Dad took me all around the country competing, and took me throughout Australia to a few different carnivals, and it was just it was a learning process, and Dad was fairly patient. But it was difficult with him as a coach because of his style of coaching. But he really ingrained in me some good values, and he was really good. He was a really good top competitor, and a world-class competitor, but he didn't have the opportunities to compete that often because he was trying to earn money to support the family. So I really appreciated him putting all that time into me, and kind of when I got the chance to do it professionally, it was a pleasure for me to be able to do that.
So was there a lot of pride in what you were achieving on behalf of your dad as much as for yourself?
Yeah, both Mum and Dad. Mum was really instrumental in my early days as well in wood chopping. She was really supportive, and she actually had wood chopping background on her side of the family as well. So I guess when I say it was in the blood, it came from both Mum and Dad, and it was something. Well, Mum always said I was destined to be a wood chopper. So,
well, and I think have you not continued the family tradition as well? Am I right? Is your wife involved?
Yeah, I met my wife at a wood chopping competition at the Easter show actually, in Auckland, and her family became involved in wood chopping, and she took it up. She had a scholarship in Alaska to play basketball, and she came back, and we met up and eventually got married, and we started competing together really in the early stages, and keeping it in the blood like that. Yeah.
Tell me there wasn't some cheesy pickup line about do you know how fast I can cut through that piece of wood? Hey,
no, there wasn't really. It was just one of those things. She was really good at the sport, and because she was doing the scholarship in Alaska, she was really in great shape physically, and we just met up, and it was kind of love at first sight, I think.
Fantastic. So, yeah. and you do, professional sports people, their characters. We talk about role models, and sports people are role models. Sometimes they're bad role models, but they are. Kids do look up to them. But what you're just talking about is that ultimately the best role models are the parents, aren't they?
Yeah, for sure. Like I say, my dad really instilled some strong values for me, like just the hours he used to work to support us, and that work ethic and the training ethic that he had. He instilled that in me, and I guess that's a lot of the reason I was successful I've been successful in my career because of those values. So, and then my mum, on the other hand, she had the same values. She was strong. She was a rock for the family, and so I was really lucky. I had great parents, and my dad he played rugby for King Country, so he was a top athlete. He was a top boxer, but because of how life worked out, he never had the opportunities.
Yeah, and it's a different era, isn't it? A different generation. But he sounds like if he was born into this generation, wow, the opportunities now for someone to excel in sport.
Yeah, for sure. It's a different era, like you say. Back in those days, it was go to work, provide for the family, and that was number one. But yeah, totally different days now. You got professional sport, and the life they can make for themselves in professional sports these days is fantastic.
We're talking with legendary New Zealand and world champion professional woodcutter Jason Wynyard. More in a moment.
Team McMillan BMW is celebrating 30 years of BMW in New Zealand with an unbeatable offer. With 0% interest across New Zealand's best-selling premium SUV range, free insurance on all BMW 1 and 3 Series models, plus outstanding deals across all near-new demonstrator vehicles, there's never been a better time to purchase the BMW you've always wanted. Stock is limited. Visit Team McMillan BMW Newmarket before August 31 and you'll find out why BMW is the #1 selling premium vehicle in New Zealand. Conditions apply.
When you're buying a forklift, there's a simple test. Knock, knock. That's a major brand of Japanese forklift. A lot of plastic. And then there's China's leading forklift, Hangcha. Cold, hard steel. Hangcha forklifts use less of the flimsy stuff and more of the tough stuff in every truck they build. So if you're buying a forklift, don't try it until you've knocked it. Get behind the wheel of some Hangcha steel. Hangcha from Northern Forklifts. Phone 0800 426 4242.
The guys love coming back to play at Music Point.
Oh, this is the life, eh, Doug?
Yep, only $25. Friendly people, can't beat it.
Howick Golf Club, the friendly club where green fees are only $25. Or join up as a member. That's $20 a week. Or use the flexible payment plan. Call 0800 Golf Game for details. Play golf on Panoramic Music Point Peninsula, Bucklands Beach.
One day I'll go around an under 90.
Oh, plenty of time, mate. No hurry.
Radio Sport and Bionic proudly present the 2013 Rugby Championship with your host, Steve Hansen.
Oh, you're back. What do you want this time then?
Take us to Wellington.
Make your own way there, I'm busy.
That's really quite rude.
I'm here to coach, not make friends.
Fair point. Saturday night, 7:35, live from the Cape Tin. The All Blacks face the Wallabies of Australia.
Join us if you can. It'll be really, really good.
Radio Sport, the Hyundai High Performance Hour. Proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
Jason Wynyard, our guest on the High Performance Hour tonight, and we've talked a little about the upbringing and the influence of both mum and dad, and then what you said about 12 when you started competing. And I mean, do you have vivid memories of those competitions? And were you a bit of a marked man? The Wynyard name straight away? Were people sort of thinking we're going to look out for this fella?
It was quite funny because I remember my first wood chop was at Mamaku, and they'd been running a carnival there for many, many years, and it was one of the bigger competitions on the circuit. And I'd never chopped before, and some other axemen's sons actually came up and asked me if I wanted to compete at a boys' chop. And I remember it because I'd done so badly at it. It was just terrible. I didn't really know how to chop. I'd watched Dad, but when I got on the block, I was the last to finish, and the other boys were well finished, and I was still there slogging away. But I got my block in too, and after that, I decided that I wanted to be better at that. So yeah, that's my first memory as starting out in wood chopping.
Yeah, but this is interesting because obviously you loved it. You wanted to be a part of it. You loved it. I've just finished reading the Agassi autobiography, which it's a few years now since it was released, but he makes the point the whole way through. Here's this amazing tennis player, I think seventh all time in terms of winning Grand Slams. He hated tennis. He hated it. And he had a totally different experience with his father in terms of being forced into something. But here you are, very much finding your own way because you love the sport straight away.
Yeah, it was different with Dad too. Like he knew I had potential to be a good sportsman, and it wasn't necessarily wood chopping. He probably...
Were you playing a bit of rugby as well?
I was playing a little bit of social rugby, a little bit of rugby at school, but it wasn't really natural to me like wood chopping was. And I think my father would have preferred me to do something else like play rugby or be a boxer. But those things just weren't natural to me. And... So I kept plugging away with the wood chopping. As I said, that's how I started into it. And I must say, I didn't really like being beaten like that, coming last. And I don't enjoy being beaten to this day. So,
it doesn't happen that often, Jason. I mean, you've probably forgotten what it feels like.
Oh, no, it does happen. Like in New Zealand, we're really strong in wood chopping, and people don't really realise how unfair of a sport it is. You're dealing with natural timber, and sometimes even timber out of the same tree can be... You can get
what do you call it? I mean, give us some of the terminology here. Is it a block that you're chopping?
Yeah, we call them blocks when they cut them in.
You can get a bad block?
Yeah, for sure. They try to get all the major championships out of one tree. But if you can imagine from the base of the tree to the top of the tree, the base of the tree, we call that the butt, that's always going to be a stronger timber. So you might draw... You draw for your blocks, of course, in a competition. So you draw alleys out of a bottle or a hat, according to which section of wood you get for the championship. And from the bottom of that tree to the top of the tree, there could be 10 seconds difference in the cutting time.
Wow!
So not many people realise that. So it's one of the most unfair sports in the world, I believe. But as the longer you're in it, the experience you can gain from being involved with the sport for years and years, you can sometimes turn those deficits around. You can set up a block a certain way, use a certain type of axe, use more speed instead of power, and you can sometimes get around those obstacles. But it's an unfair start for sure at times.
So, I mean, apart from the odd occasion on the news when you've picked up a bit of coverage of late on your return from overseas, and perhaps, as I say, around Easter time with the Easter shows, the sport doesn't really get too much coverage. So can you help us with some of the details, some of the terminology around it? So, I mean, what do we call you officially? I've lumberjack, wood cutter, wood chopper. What are you known as?
Well, I'd prefer to be called an axeman.
Axeman.
That's our terminology in New Zealand, basically.
And is it a North American thing, the lumberjack?
The lumberjack thing comes from USA, Canada. That's what they call their competitors over there, and it's more so because they do a range of different disciplines in the sport. So they do disciplines ranging from soaring events to chainsaw events right through to the wood chopping events. So they're basically called lumberjacks. In New Zealand, we're called axemen because the core part of our competitions is with the axe.
Is with an axe, and yet, am I right? I think you've won world titles with your wife, haven't you, on the saw?
Yeah, we've sawed together and won, set world records and won world titles together. So
is it in New Zealand? The main disciplines are what? Talk us through them.
The main disciplines in New Zealand are the standing chop, which most people would recognise. That's where we have a block mounted in a steel stand and we cut a scarf out from the front side, run around to the back side of it and cut another scarf and try and sever it in the quickest time. The underhand chop is the event where the block's mounted horizontally in a steel stand. You get to cut what we call footholes out of the block. You stand on the block and you basically do the same, similar to the standing block. You cut a scarf out of one side, you turn to the back side and cut another scarf and try and sever it in the least amount of time again. There's soaring disciplines, single soaring, which is just one male competitor soaring using a 6-foot crosscut saw. There's double hand soaring, which is basically two males using a crosscut saw. And then there's jack and jewel soaring that I compete with my wife in, and that's basically a male and a female on the end of a crosscut saw.
Now, one you might be about to mention it, but one you haven't mentioned, and I just remember this as a kid. Again, I'm sorry, I keep going back to Easter show, but the one I remember, and it was on the TV, was the where they'd put the boards in and more or less climb the tree and chop it down as they came back down. Is that still used?
Yeah, that's not as popular as it used to be, say, 20 years ago. It was really big in New Zealand 20 years ago, but they call that the jigger chop or the tree. And in North America and Canada, they have a different, it's basically a shorter tree, so you only have two boards, whereas the competitions in New Zealand were three boards.
Yeah, and quite
you
spectacular,
go up one side,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Come down and go up the other side. So.
And I don't imagine that necessarily would have favoured a fella like you. I mean, what are you, 6'5"?
Yeah, 6'4", and the weight factor, about 130 kgs, so... generally, the lighter competitors are more adept at that type of competition.
But that's not run that often now, is it? But you're saying not that popular.
Not the three boards each side. There are carnivals that still run it, but it's really difficult to set up that size of a pole. And the competitors, there's just not as many competitors that do it anymore. In North America, you only go up one side, so you have two boards, then you chop the block at the top with your good hand and finish with your backhand, and they call that the springboard chop. So that's a little different to our tree event. Okay,
so and a specialist discipline for you, if there is one, because I know you've got to be good across all of them. But if there was a specialist discipline for you, what would it be?
It'd probably be the standing chop or the standing block chop. That was always something that was fairly natural to me, and probably the most comfortable for me. So I enjoy the standing block.
And I mean, that is the event, is it, in terms of, if there's a blue ribbon event, is that it? That's the 100 metres?
Yeah, I think it is. It definitely is. It's the most difficult one, and it's probably the most prestigious one when you're talking about world championship titles.
Well, we want to talk technically about how you go about approaching these disciplines, but also the big events, the world championships. We'll talk about your preparation and just how you get yourself ready for one of those big events. Jason Wynyard, our guest on the High Performance Hour.
Extra, extra, hear all about it. Mad Butcher slashes mince price for 1 week only.
G'day
I'll make the Mad Butcher with what could be the best price in New Zealand for beef steak mince that carries the New Zealand quality mark. Only $4.99 a kilo. That's right, beef steak mince for only $4.99 a kilo. This week only in all Mad Butcher stores. This price is unlikely to be repeated, so get to your local Mad Butcher store today for beef steak mince. Only $4.99 a kilo. You'd be mad to miss it.
Archibald and Shorter driving style.
Real driving style is now even more affordable at Archibald and Shorter Roverland. During August, they're offering the head-turning Range Rover Evoque or the ever-capable Freelander 2 with 0% interest. Simply pay a third now, a third in 2014, and the final third in 2015. Terms and conditions apply. The only difficult choice is, which one?
Archibald and Shorter driving style.
Archibald and Shorter Roverland, Green Lane and Glenfield.
From Swanson, Lincoln, Rent-A-Car to Henderson, Herndon, Browns Bay, Rent-A-Ute to Mission Bay, Milford, Chatswood, Rent-A-Truck to Whitford, Red Hill, Pine Hill, Rent-A-Van to Coatesville.
53 years ago, Sterling Moss won the New Zealand Grand Prix at Ardmore, and Metropolitan Rentals were already helping Aucklanders get around. Since then, they've helped 25,000 sports teams get to the game, 100,000 local businesses move their goods, and over 300,000 Aucklanders ship house. Metropolitan Rentals, still on Dominion Road, still the best.
Radio Sport presents the 2013 NRL Raiders. Sea Eagles Sunday at 4. Streaming live at radiosport.co.nz. The Hyundai High Performance Hour with Andrew Dewhurst. Proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
This is the High Performance Hour, and our guest tonight is a world champion many times over. I go back to that. I hope I'm right with that number. You've probably lost count, but over 110 titles over 15 years. That's a lot of world titles, Jason. That's quite some record.
It's actually over 200.
God,
and
are you
I
serious?
have lost count a bit with
wow.
it, but I guess that's my approach to it too. Like I'm always thinking about the next competition and trying not to sort of worry about what's gone past. But it definitely is over 200.
So can I ask how old you are now?
I'm 39 now.
39. Are you at the peak of your powers as an axeman? Where do because different sports, athletes peak at a different age. When you head out to the World Championships and the big events, are you about the same as your competitors? Are you older, or are there some older than you?
It depends where you go in the world. Like in Australia, a lot of the competitors range from sort of 40 to 50. Probably most of the competitors do. But I think years ago they used to say that you don't hit your peak as an axeman until you're 35 to 45. And I guess like approaching those sort of that age now, I'm understanding why they used to say that, because there's so much experience involved with wood chopping, and experience plays such a huge part in how well you do. As long as you take care of your body, the experience factor is huge in the sport. But we are seeing a lot of younger competitors come up and are really good in their early 20s. And hey, I broke world records in my early 20s, so I don't think you can necessarily stick to those, to what they used to say. But hey, I feel good. I feel good at this age. Are
you still winning? Yeah,
I'm doing okay. The lumberjack thing's been one of my passions for the last sort of 18 years. I've been going there, and it's been nice to win that 15 times straight.
Now, which one is this? The one they stopped you going to?
No,
or is this because there is an American competition, isn't there, or a North American-based competition where you won that many trucks off them? Am I right that they said you're not coming anymore? Is that pretty much what they did?
Yeah, that's pretty much what they done. The Still Timber Sports Series was probably the well-known competition, and in 2011 they decided to make it a USA-only event.
Because you'd won it how many times?
Well, it wasn't just me, actually. It was David Bolstad and I. We'd won it for 15 years. So
well, there's another name, in New Zealand wood chopping, the Bolstad family.
Yep, the Bolstad family, and David Bolstad was one of the greatest axemen to come out of New Zealand. So
you guys kept winning it, and they said, no more.
Pretty much. I guess their marketing department in the USA desperately wanted a US champion, and so they changed the basically changed the rules, and they got the US champion in 2012. So.
What do you do in that sort of situation? I don't imagine there was much you could do, but I mean, was there an axeman's union? Yeah, I mean, what do you do, Jason, when someone does that? And clearly it is to essentially take you and the other internationals out of the equation.
It was pretty tough time looking back at it, and still a little bit scarred about it as well, because like that was the biggest money competition there was in the world, and basically I was a professional, and you know you had to do that to earn your money for the year, basically. So it was tough. It was really hard to swallow, because basically they pushed you out because you were too good, and really hard to swallow. But I was really fortunate because I built a good relationship with Still New Zealand, and when that happened, they let me take up a position at work with the company. So I was really fortunate.
That softened the blow a little bit.
It did soften the blow, and I've had a 8-year relationship with them, and it's been a good one. They've totally supported me. Unfortunately, they don't control what happens in other countries under the Still company, but they've been really supportive.
You're with the right mob. I mean, if you think of chainsaws and what have you, and I assume they make other product as well, but you think of Still in this country, don't you?
Yep, for sure. They make that. They're a fantastic company and make high quality outdoor power equipment. So I couldn't have wished to be involved with a better company. So
there are obviously other events though, and other championships that you are able to attend. How does it work on an international scale? Is there an annual world championship? How does it work?
Wood chopping's a different sport. There are so many world championships throughout the year, and part of the reason is because there's different species of wood in the competitions, different sizes of diameters of wood in the competitions. So there are sometimes 10 different world championships that you can be competing for throughout the year. So it's a little bit complicated and difficult to understand, because it's not really on par with other sports, but this is basically how it is. So there are more prestigious events like the Sydney Royal Easter Show. They have 6 world championships they hold there yearly. They're probably looked upon as the most prestigious events to win in the world. They're the most difficult because they're cut in hard wood, and the championships are big, large diameter logs. So if you win a championship there, it means you're pretty special. You've worked hard for it, and you've got to earn it, because the Australians are really good in their own timber. So that's one of the major world championships. The Lumberjack World Championships is held in Hayward, Wisconsin every year, normally at the end of July, and that is an event that's run for 54 years. But it's basically a lumberjack competition, so you have a whole bunch of different disciplines, and then you try to become the overall champion at the end of it all. But each individual discipline is a world championship on its own.
So it's almost like a decathlon, but you're actually, the 110 hurdles is actually the world championships at the same time.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
So,
and Wisconsin, that'd be interesting. They know a certain Kiwi over there, Kirk Penny. He was at university over there. Does that conversation ever come up when you head over there?
It doesn't really, but...
Drop his name a couple of times. So what was it? The Badgers over there, I think, is university, and I'm sure you'll find a few people that suddenly realise that you're from the same country as Kirk Penny.
It's actually one that's like Wisconsin is pretty dear to my heart, because when I was travelling throughout the states, that was kind of my home base, and Hayward, Wisconsin was like a second hometown for me, and I got to know the local people. The Lumberjack World Championships is a community-run event, and it's been going for so long. All the people that run it are volunteers, and it has a fantastic spirit about it. It involves log rolling, speed climbing, as well as the wood chopping aspect of it. So it's just a celebration of the sport, really, and it's fantastic.
But this is all great spectator stuff, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I'm picturing it as you talk about it, and yet, it just seems to me, this is a sleeping giant, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. It's fantastic from a spectator's point of view. There's so much, and the crazy thing about the Lumberjack World Championships is it doesn't even get televised. So
wow,
it's been running for so long and doesn't get televised, but it's so exciting. And this is part of the reason I'm getting involved with the organisation of an event in New Zealand. And
well, I don't know how much you can tell us about that, but we may talk about that towards the end of the show. Back in a moment, though, and we'll finish up with Jason Wynyard, and we'll talk the technical side of it. We'll see if he can put us there on top of the the log and tell us what goes on, because I know what everyone's thinking. You're thinking your toes, aren't you? So we'll talk about that in a moment with Jason Wynyard.
DeWalt Power Tools. Guaranteed tough. DeWalt XR brushless technology combined with 4-amp high-capacity batteries for extreme runtime performance. Check out DeWalt.com or view the range at your local tool stockist or hardware store. DeWalt Power Tools. Guaranteed tough. Proud sponsors of the ITM Cup coverage on this station.
Specs Direct, Auckland's optical superstore, with a 1-hour fitting service and over 1,500 frames to choose from. For August, all frames have $50 to $100 off, including designer frames like Gucci, Silhouette, Hugo Boss, InFace, William Morris, and more. Offer ends August 30. Go to specsdirect.co.nz or the showroom at 35 Leslie Ave, Morningside, and see why Specs Direct are the leaders for readers. Big range, best quality, specsdirect.co.nz.
The America's Cup, the oldest trophy in sport, steeped in tradition. It's one of the greatest sporting highlights of the year, and Radio Sport is bringing you all the action with the voice of the America's Cup, Peter Montgomery in San Francisco, thanks to Ray White. Ray White has 135 offices nationwide with the know-how to sell your property. The unrivaled experience of Ray White means a better understanding of the property market. The 34th America's Cup, thanks to Ray White on Radio Sport.
Trending now on Radio Sport.
Hey, it's James here. 3 more All Blacks have recommitted to New Zealand rugby today until the end of 2015. Find out who's sticking around. Listen back to Jesse Ryder talking his 6-month suspension with Telf yesterday on the BTE. Find out what's coming up in sport with our live commentary schedule and how's your sporting knowledge. Test it and try out our Radio Sport quiz.
Twitter at Radio Sport NZ, Facebook.com/Radio Sport NZ, and at radiosport.co.nz. The Hyundai High Performance Hour, proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
This is the High Performance Hour. Andrew Dewhurst with you on this Wednesday night. Our very special guest is Jason Wynyard. And Jason, just final part of our interview, just want to have a chat about the technical side of it. It is a sport. It is a sport that demands a great deal of its athletes. I imagine from a physiological, but a skill level, the training, the hard work. What makes a good axeman, or woman for that matter? What makes a world champion in this sport? Is there a formula?
Yeah, there probably is a formula. I think.
What's your formula? Can I put it that way?
I think probably my main good attribute is my determination, and I think that's probably apparent in any top sports person you speak to. I mean, you look in Richie McCaw's eyes and you can just see it in his eyes, you know.
Determination to do what? Determination to win? Determination to be better? I mean, are you able to define that even more?
Well, I think you've got to have the passion for a start. You've got to have the passion for the sport, and then you need the determination to that thing that gets you up every morning to train, and it just pushes you to want to be the best at it. And I guess that's what I have for wood chopping. You know, I really want to be the best at it. I don't think I probably haven't gotten the best out of myself yet. So every day I'm trying to make myself better.
And that's probably a good thing, isn't it? I mean, if you got up tomorrow morning and thought, gee, I'm not going to get any better. I mean, that would almost be you start going down the other side of the hill, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's probably time for retirement if you're ever starting to think like that, you know.
Almost in anything in life, isn't it? I mean, you should always be getting better.
I think so. And I guess that's what it is for me. Like, it's a passion for me. I really enjoy getting out there and competing with the axe and the saw, and that's what gets me up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go training, you know.
And so what about the physiology? You're 6'4", 130 kgs, but is this a sport that equally caters for the stocky, strong 5'11" guy standing alongside you?
Yeah, for sure. I think, you have to adjust your technique accordingly, but if you have that desire to be good at it, there are several axemen who are, not so tall and not so heavy, but they've worked their technique to suit their body type, basically, and then they work their equipment to suit, what they can swing. So, and they still excel. So there's good opportunities for basically any body type in the sport. It's just you've got to figure out a way of getting the best out of yourself, basically.
So strength-wise, where after your 20 years in the sport, 20-plus years in the sport, where are you strong as a consequence, as a result of all of the work that you've done? Is it forearms? Is it shoulders? Is it, is there a particular part of the body that is obviously being worked over more so than other?
Well, I think that, like in wood chopping and sawing, you should be using your legs. So I'm probably pretty strong in my legs.
That's the last thing I would have thought of. That's
what everyone says.
It's almost like the boxer, isn't it? The power comes from the legs.
That's exactly right. I think with wood chopping, you get the truest, strongest hit when it comes right from the tips of your toes and up through your legs.
And then you talked about technique. So technique and timing. I mean, is that important? And I guess the wood plays a huge part in that, does it?
Yeah, technique is critical. You've got to be able to put that axe within 1 millimetre of your mark, and you've got to repeat that sometimes 50 times, depending on how hard the timber is. So a lot of accuracy involved, a lot of muscle memory, and it's just repetitive training to get yourself to be able to do that. Just practice. The same with sawing. Totally different concept, of course, because you're not actually swinging anything. You're basically pushing a saw back and forth, but that has its whole other set of requirements.
And I've got to ask you, because as I say, and I'm sure you get asked this often, but us punters sit at home watching on the telly or at the Easter show, and we see you guys swinging these. I imagine they are crazy sharp, the axes that you use, and it appears as though you're doing it without concern at all about your own safety. How dangerous is it? And I'm guessing for you, you're the best in the world at mitigating the risk, so therefore not very dangerous. But is it a sport that has its risks?
Yeah, for sure. The axes are razor sharp. You can shave with them. They have to be sharp to cut the timber well. So there's always that element of danger there. The first thing we learn as axemen is the respect of the tools, and this goes from just getting them out of the cover and handling them, let alone when you go to swing them. But it's a very dangerous sport. I haven't seen a lot of accidents, fortunately. If you're taught the correct stance and technique, you're relatively safe. It's only when you're in the learning phase of the sport, that's really where the most danger is. When you've kind of been involved for 1 or 2 years and you've been taught the correct technique, it's relatively safe.
So is there almost a bit of an axeman's code? I mean, that level of respect, and you can be larking about a bit outside of the competition arena and having a joke with your competitors or your mates, but as soon as those acts are anywhere near, it suddenly turns very serious?
Yeah, for sure. As soon as anyone picks up an axe in competition, it's basically it's your piece of sporting equipment, so you treat it with huge respect, and you've got to take care of these axes and saws because they're really expensive, and if you damage them, it's going to make you slower through the cut. So yeah, huge amount of respect for your tools and your fellow competitors.
And just before we talk about an event that's on the cards, and trust that you're working with through that event, I'm interested from an emotional, a psychological point of view, that you're in a competition. Let's put you into a world championship event. Someone's made a turn quicker than you. You know that you might be just a little bit behind. How do you stop yourself from tensing up and losing that technique and losing that timing and thinking, I've got to smash through this block, I'm behind, because the temptation must be just to tense up?
Yeah, that's huge. It's amazing that you asked that because, it often happens. But you train yourself to just totally focus in on what you're doing. So, like if I'm in a competition and I see someone turning or I see something out of the corner of my eye, I'm not in the right place. So basically that's why you do all the training. You drill yourself to just have a game plan and execute that game plan and don't let anything else come into your head. So, sometimes it happens and you can overcome it, but as soon as you get tense, it's like a golf swing. You lose all your impact once you get tense. So you've got to really train yourself to stay relaxed and basically execute your game plan.
Now, again, you've had a very successful time of it of late, but it's been overseas. I understand there's some work underway for an event that may happen in New Zealand and bring some of the best in the world in about February next year?
Yeah, that's right. Some really exciting times coming up. I think we're going to have a major event in New Zealand next February, and it's going to be...
This is hard because you can't give too much away, can you? Because it's still in the planning phase. But,
yeah, that's right.
So we've got to talk very generally about it. But this is going to be that opportunity, isn't it, to take the sport to the mainstream?
Yeah, for sure. We're going to have the best competitors in the world coming over to compete in this event, and it's going to be like you've never seen wood chopping before. So I'm really excited about it. And
in a stadium?
In a stadium. Nothing's confirmed yet where it's going to be, but we're looking at having about 4,000 people watching.
Wow.
And it's going to be a major event, so I'm really excited about it.
And a part of this is you're looking to do some good as well through the community. Tell us about the trust that you're involved with.
Yeah, we're looking at setting up a trust. So some of the proceeds from the event are going to go into the trust, and the trust is going to be set up to help young people in sport, basically, from like 14, the age of 14 to 16. And what we really want to do is give back to, the people that can't afford to send their kids off to different sporting events, and their kids are showing promise. We really want to support that and help them reach that top level through those hard years. So
and that is an amazing gesture, because we've just spoken earlier about the fact that you're not on the $500,000 a year contract of a league or rugby player, that you've got you've come from work today, I believe. So you've still got to go out and work as well as compete and train, and yet you're doing this. That is fantastic.
Yeah, I'm really excited about the trust as well. It's my chance to give back and do some good. So I'm really looking forward to setting that up and having that, really create some successful sports people in New Zealand. I mean, I was really fortunate with my parents. They basically funded, my upcoming in the sport, and not all parents can afford to do that these days. So this is where this trust is going to be really helpful.
Fantastic. Listen, been brilliant. Really enjoyed the chat, and we will certainly follow with great interest the details of that event, and I'm sure once dates and venues and more information is available, we'll get that out there. But well done on what has so far been a wonderful career, because by what you've said tonight, you've got another 11 years at your peak. Does that sound all right? You didn't break into a cold sweat?
I think at least 10. But,
yeah, there we go.
It's been great talking with you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Good stuff. Jason Wynyard with us on the High Performance Hour. Back in a moment to wrap things up.
Erotica Lifestyle Expo is back August 30 till September 1 at the Ellerslie Event Centre. The biggest lineup of international stars and acts. 2 stages with full-time live shows, fully licensed bar, free parking and just $25 at the door. This is strictly R18. Visit eroticaexpo.co.nz for more.
Please do drop by and do run your eye over Erotica. Oh, do come inside.
David owns his own business. Lots of staff, creditors, debtors, tax, GST. But even though he has all those things in his life, he sleeps extraordinarily well. He's even had the odd one of those dreams. You see, he uses JMV Chartered Accountants, and JMV Chartered Accountants use only the most experienced accountants. They don't have juniors, and they make sure you have nothing to worry about. JMV Chartered Accountants. Visit jmv.co.nz and get a better night's sleep.
Counties Toyota for the drive of your life.
Hi, Mark Russell, CEO, Counties Toyota. Our spectacular Signature Class sale is now on. Not only thousands off selected Signature Class, all with the outstanding 3-year warranty, but also choose from 2 incredible add-ons, either the 2-year service plan or $500 free fuel. It's your choice.
Counties Toyota for the drive of your life.
Counties Toyota, Takanini and Pukekohe.
For all your scaffolding requirements, talk to the team at All Scaffolding. Whether you're builders, roofers, painters or home handymen, they'll do it all, including roof edge protection and shrink wrap. And their prices are very competitive. They're your professional scaffolders. All Scaffolding. Phone them today on 0800 ALL-SCAF.
Does earning an income as your own boss with no staff, minimal overheads that you can do from anywhere sound appealing? If you have an interest in learning to trade the markets, then join one of Trade with Precision's free online webinars this week. For registration info, just text TRADER to 244.
Hyundai High Performance Hour with Andrew Dewhurst. Proudly brought to you by Hyundai New Zealand.
Yeah, that's a wonderful interview. Really appreciative of Jason Wynyard joining us in the studio earlier tonight, and it'll be fascinating to see more details over the next few weeks of that significant event, International Axeman coming to New Zealand. I think it'll be fantastic. I don't know, Della, you got memories of sort of Easter shows and what have you as a kid and going along and seeing the axemen at work and the lumberjack competitions and what have you? Great spectator sport, isn't it?
Absolutely loved it. You know, in Otago we had the AMP show, the
Caledonian Games or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Festival week and the wood chopping, the axemen, that was always a big highlight, and especially when they climbed up those poles.
Yes, the tree one.
You know,
yeah, they need to bring that back big time.
And I hated them watching standing on the block.
Yeah.
That used to scare me as a young fella.
Well, I mean, we heard Jason talk about you could shave with the axe. You can shave with the axe. That's how sharp they are. I hope you enjoyed that, folks. Remember, the website is hph.co.nz, hph.co.nz. Follow the link through to our Facebook page for the High Performance Hour. Like us and answer the very simple question relating to that interview. I guarantee you can answer the question. And you're in the draw for our weekly prize. Another guest on the show next week, of course. It'll be a little bit abbreviated. We'll have live rugby next week from 7:30, but we'll have the High Performance Hour on from about 9:15 next week, thanks to Hyundai. Coming up, the news. Also after the news, we'll take your calls, 0800 825577, your texts on 5009. We'll update the Ashes. What was the news on the toss, Andrew? The Australians won the toss and they are batting. So England in the field. That Ashes test getting underway very shortly. We'll give you score updates, but we'll take your calls 3 to 11, and then it's quiz night between 11 and midnight. And our specialist topic tonight, if you can stump us on this, is the Bledisloe Cup. Australians, we'd love to hear from you.